'Twas the night before training camp, and the Seattle Seahawks decided to reward one of their own, inking Uchenna Nwosu to a 3-year, $59 million contract extension, including $32 million of new guaranteed money. That is a tidy sum of cash. But for some Seahawks fans that might be out there wondering if I'm going to be anti this deal, or if I'm looking at it saying, hey, he's now the 8th highest edge paid defender, he's not the 8th best, you're not going to find that here. I am, after all, the guy that posted this video last year of Uchenna about midway into the year, where I was looking at him as a player who was indeed elite and indeed was a very complete player. That's, of course, I think what would make an elite player, if we're going to look at that, the first and foremost is you got to be a full, complete player, not just a one-trick pony with your pass rush. And he is not that. He gives it to you in every kind of manner that you want, from his ability to set the edge, his pursuit, his effort, his pass rush, his skill, his plan, his ability to use his hands. The man is like a technician out there as a pass rusher. There's not a lot he can't do. Maybe the only real one missing thing from him is that he doesn't have some super skill that really stands out. He doesn't have the Joey or Nick Bosa scissor chop inside out move or the Euro step or something like that. He can kind of do all of it a little bit from time to time and call upon that, which makes him very hard to play if you're an offensive lineman. And Uchenna Nwosu came to the Seattle Seahawks last year in free agency in a market that was really heavily wound up with a lot of edge defenders. A lot more names out there that were more fancier, were going to be higher acclaimed guys that had had a little bit more production. Your Zadarius Smith types, for instance. And this kind of depressed the market for Uchenna Nwosu because he had come to the Chargers as a second-round pick, relatively high, but he was coming in as a very young player who was also very raw, and it was going to take some time for him to develop, on top of the fact that he was stacked behind the depth chart a little bit. Them having Joey Bosa there with the Chargers, a former top 5 pick, and then also Melvin Ingram, who was also a former, I believe, first-round pick who had a very fine career there with the Chargers. So he had to wait his turn. He got his cup of coffee. He got a little bit more playing time, more and more, and by that final season with the Chargers, he had posted career highs, but to the tune of only 5 sacks, which wasn't going to get a lot of people's attention. Then he comes here to Seattle now last year, and he doubles all of those same numbers that he had just bested the year prior. So the 40 tackles go up to 66. The 5 sacks go up to 9.5. Forced fumbles go up. Everything down the line, fumble recoveries, even the advanced analytic stats with PFF. He posts his best numbers across the board. And my point on this is that you are still getting an ascending player here to some degree. And this is why I'm okay with this money being spent in this particular place, because he still has a chance to get even a little bit better here, but he's still providing you tremendous overall value. By halfway through the year, teams had realized he was one of the main only issues you had to deal with on a Seahawks defense. That started to get him getting a little bit more attention, or he might have been able to get out there at 13, 14 sacks. He was getting more double teams as the year went along. And when I think about Uchenna Nwosu, there's a guy that comes to mind who's recently come down the pike who's been very similar in this fashion, and that's Shaquille Barrett. Shaquille Barrett started his career out with the Denver Broncos, edge defender, kind of stuck behind a couple of other edges that they wanted to run with, including Von Miller. Can't hate on him on that. Bradley Chubb, can't hate him on that. Had to kind of wait a little bit of his turn. Finally got his turn then when he went to Tampa Bay, and then boy, did he show out. Did he really take his game up another notch? Not that he was bad with Denver, but you got to show more of what he was as a player, and I think we're going to see something very similar here with Uchenna Nwosu going into the future. The money is a lot. He's going to be worth it. He's only 26 years old. He'll be 26 through pretty much almost the whole rest of the year, not turning 27 till December, which means that throughout the course of this contract, you're going to have him in his 20s, not paying him on the bad side of 30 or even into 30 years of age. They can certainly get out from under this deal, I'm sure, after a couple of years if it really was to go sideways, but we're going to get him in the prime of his career, which is my real point here. There may be also some who have some reticence in regards to the signing beyond the numbers or whether or not he's worth the numbers because of the fact that they look at this of creating a logjam situation as it pertains to the other young edge guys that you just drafted in successive years. Second round Boye Mafe in last year's draft, and second round pick Derek Hall in this year's draft. But I think this is a part of the new modernized thinking and approach when it comes to pass rush, which is not just about having 2 primetime guys that are rocking and rolling 24/7 off the edge, eating up all of the snaps. It's now more about a rotation. It's now more about keeping your defensive line fresh and ready to grow and raring to go. I mean, this is what the Eagles did last year, and I believe set in the sack record is They had guys that they were able to just keep flowing through there, always staying fresh, never getting wore down. On top of that, you have the NFL expanding, going to 17 games. You've got the 2 Thursday night games, which means you have 2 games on the schedule where it's going to shrink up on you a little bit. And you got to bounce right back, having from just played to now go out there and be ready to go again. So calling upon that depth becomes even that much more important. It's a paradigm shift away from it just being about you having the starters and them carrying the day, and more about now really the depth and totality of what you bring from the whole team. Especially if you can bring really good talent off the bench, 1A, 1B, instead of 1, 2, 3. And that's a little bit of what I think the Seahawks are going to be able to accomplish as they go now into the future. Certainly, this also does impact a bit of Darrell Taylor and where he fits into all of this. Is Derek Hall going to get a lot of snaps in his first season? We're going to see how this has to all play out. Is Darrell Taylor maybe down the road going to be looked at, or one of these guys looked at as a trade commodity the Seahawks can lose? We'll see. They've got flexibility with that. But when it comes to Uchenna Nwosu, this is a good signing. This is money well spent. He's going to be a very productive player for you. And I'm going to tell you this, the cost of edge players is only going up into the future. Nick Bosa is just about to sign his new deal. And when he does so, he's going to crest over the top of the $30 million mark, maybe well over the top of the $30 million a year mark. And that's just going to push every other contract after that up around that area, if not topping it, up close to it. And this might look like a deal that now looks a little expensive, but give it another year and a half down the line, and it looks like I'm not going to say a bargain or anything like that, but it looks like money well spent. So Uchenna Nwosu, you're going to be one of your bedrock players here going forward. He's one of your core guys going forward, and hopefully he can play a part and continue to be a part of taking this defense and helping it rise up from what it was last year. He was not one of the problems last year. Your defensive line inside, problematic. Your linebackers last year, problematic. But Uchenna Nwosu, snap in and snap out, gave you all of his heart, everything he had. I'm going to put some cuts together and do some film breakdowns of him to kind of give you some representations to you guys of that. But there's so many cuts I could show you from the All-22 last year of him finding his way back into a play that he had no business making, because it was all about effort. It was all about want. It was all about, I'm going to do whatever I can to come in here and make an impact on this play. And if you've got 11 guys on defense, all playing like that, all buying in like that, that's how you help to raise the defense's performance up into a top 10 state, even if they're maybe missing some talent at certain parts. We'll see if Uchenna can bring that all together. This is going to be a hell of a year, I think, to go and watch going forward. And certainly, I think it's a great indication to the locker room about rewarding players and rewarding those players who've worked hard. Even a guy's been here for a year, you don't need sometimes 3 years to realize out of a guy. You know what you got. You give him that extension, and you're happy to do so. So we'll see how he does. We'll see if this edge rush can be one of the better ones in football moving forward. My name is Brandon Kane. This is the Hawks Nest. Thank you for watching. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. But beyond all that, don't you ever forget, go Hawks.